Well, welcome back, YouTubers, and today we're working on an '07 Pilot. It has the 3.5 and an automatic transmission, and the transmission is what we're going to be changing today. This is a front-wheel drive model, so it isn't the all-wheel drive, but if you want to learn how to do this right here, stick with me and chime on. As I said at the beginning, we're working on an '07 Pilot with the 3.5, and it has an automatic transmission that is front wheel drive only, not an all wheel drive. I did replace this engine sometime last year, and I didn't film me doing that, but I did swap it out, and he said that the transmission was acting funny at that time, but it wasn't setting any codes, and he said it would only slip a little bit under high acceleration on start-offs or takeoffs. And he said he didn't really want to do it at that time because he didn't have the money. But now here we are changing it literally like almost exactly 1 year later. So what we're going to do is, the first thing we need to do on this is I'm going to take the cover off the engine, and we're going to pull the air cleaner and the battery out so we can get to the top of the transmission. And we always want to take the battery out, just because even if we're doing something somewhere else, you always want to take the battery off in case you arc off of the alternator or starter or something and you ground it out, and you can actually destroy the ECM in cars nowadays. So without rambling on anymore, what we're going to do, we're going to start getting to work. Like I said, let's take this cover off. Right here on the front, there's these little twist clips. Lift those up, and normally they have like little pop grommets on the back, but his are broken. Let me see if I can show it to you. See right here, they normally have little grommets right there that go onto these little rubber seals, and one of them's missing right there, but his are missing. Normally there's a squeeze tab right here. I just like to take that off just so I don't hit it with my ratchet, screwdriver, whatever I'm going to be doing to take this hose clamp off. This one right here does have a, it's like maybe a 10 millimeter. Yep. We're going to pop that loose real quick. The next thing we want to do, since we got the hose clamp off right here for the air breather tube, we're going to take the air box off. And to do this, there are 4 8mm bolts or Phillips head screws. You can use a screwdriver, but I found that using an 8mm tends to get them off a lot better. There will be a tube right here that just pushes in on the intake. And as you can see right here, that is the tube right there. Next thing we're going to do is take this battery terminal off, and we're going to take the negative off first. Your cable may be a little bit different because this is a new cable. Looks like someone has changed it recently. And most of the time these are normally bigger than a 12. These are normally 10 millimeters as well. It's a 13. Normally there's a hold down piece that goes around the top of these two, but this one doesn't have that either, and we'll probably just lift the battery right out. Next thing I want to do is try to get this battery tray out. Looks like there should be, looks like 4 maybe 12mm bolts. Here is the battery tray. It goes like this. There's 2 bolts in the front and 2 in the back, and then there's a wiring harness that attaches right here. All you do, you just squeeze the tab in and pull it out. Sometimes they can get stuck depending on how rusty this bracket is. And then right there where that little hole is right there, is where the other harness on the back that goes to your ABS unit was attached. And I just used one of these little clip tools, got behind it and popped it out. Now we got some light in here. You can start to see where everything is. So, first thing I want to do is I'm going to disconnect this breather hose for the transmission, because it does attach onto the throttle body bracket. That just pops off. It's got one of these little clips. You got to squeeze each tab, but you can do one side at a time and flip it down and you should be good to go. I'll throw that back in there just so I don't get it mixed up. Move this out of the way. Then down here is your starter. To pull this starter off, it's just one little push clip or push connector in there. It's just a blade connector. And then you're going to have the main battery cable. I'm going to try to do everything I can up top first, so we're not flip-flopping back and forth and all that good stuff. So next thing I'm going to do after I disconnect the starter is I'm going to actually start taking the sensor connectors off. Like I said, you got these solenoids, your range sensor for your shifter, your speed sensor, and there's even a ground cable down here that goes to the negative right here for your battery. That's like one of your main negative grounds. And I don't know if there's any on the back side I can get to from up here. But let me start taking all these off, and whenever I get ready to disconnect the shifter, I'll show you how to do that, because it's not hard. It's just a little bit of a different situation than most, because most of them, they're just like a push-in clip or it bolts on. But this right here actually has like a little safety clip on it you have to take off. But like I said, let me take these off and I'll be right back. So that right there is the shifter cable. As you can see, it's got a weird little clip on there. Let me remove that real quick, and once I get it off, I'll show you how to pull it off, because it's not real hard. It's just a little aggravating to try to do one-handed. So here's the tab right here. The flat spot goes against the arm on the shifter linkage. And as you see, it's got like this little tab right here. This will go through the hole in the shifter arbor, I guess you could call it. And while that's through there, and then it's got like that little notch cut out where it slides around it. But while it's in there, you have to pull back on this tab to free it up, and then you pull it straight up, and that's how that comes off. Do not lose that, because I have heard that they are a little harder to find. I mean, you can get them at Honda, but I'll just try to keep it because it is a one-off design. And that right there shows you how it goes on. Like I said, it just goes through the middle, through the little hole, and it slides around. It has like indentions on the actual pin itself to where this clip, this little C clip, can slide through. And once you have that, you can lift this up and out of the way. Next step I'm going to do is remove these two bolts right here, so we can swing the shifter cable up out of the way. And then after we do that, we can take the harness right here off. There is a bolt, I know you can't see it because I can barely see it, but there's a bolt right here that holds it on, and I think that should be it as far as that. Yeah, I think it's just that one bolt that holds it on right there. And then right here you have another one of them clips you have to pry back, and you can see it better right there. Pry that back and lift it up, and it should move. See how it's moving like that. But I'm going to go ahead and pull the cable off and get the wiring harness out of the way, so we can start getting to some bell housing bolts and stuff on the top as well. So I took the starter off now, and it uses two 14mm bolts right here and here. And I just wanted to show y'all how these starters look, because it's not like a typical starter where the arbor just comes out and engages and all that stuff. This mounts sideways onto the actual transmission, and this is what it looks like. It's got like these little dowel pins on it and everything. It's a different design than most starters are, and I just figured that I would show it to you just so you know what it looks like. And if you're doing this job, you're gonna have to remove this anyway, and I don't want you to be taken by surprise, because most people on these Hondas, they will go in either this way or that way and either bolt into the starter or into the transmission bell housing or engine. As you can see, we got the wiring harness off, and there was one extra bolt back here. You can see right there where that little reddish orange connector is. That was a 10mm right there as well. And then there was a ground strap on the water thermostat housing right here. That's a 10mm. And after we did remove that, here's where that other one was. Right there. It's kind of up inside a little bit. It's right below these solenoids right here. Alright, so we're underneath the car now. A few things I'm going to have to do underneath here is, you see that power steering pressure switch. We have to disconnect that. We're going to have to disconnect the hose right here, because we have to drain the fluid, because we have to drop this whole K-member out right here, just so we can get the transmission out. And then we're going to break this ball joint loose right there. We're going to disconnect the the sway bar end link from the actual strut up here, and then we're going to separate this right here. This is the outer tie rod, and we have the nut right there on the bottom. But I'm going to disconnect this, the sway bar end link, the lower ball joint right in here, and then drain the power steering fluid. And once I get that done, I'll be right back and to show you how I remove the axle on this, and let you know what all the sizes were as well. And as you can see, we do have transmission fluid draining. I took the axle out already. It's just going to be hard for me to showcase what you needed to do, because it is a tight spot. There are 3 14mm bolts that go in right over there. There you can see. Let me see if I can get my hand down in there for you. Like, there's one right here, right there, and then one right there on the bottom. There's the axle assembly. Once you get the bracket out, here's the bolts. The bottom two are shouldered like this, and the upper one wasn't. It's just a standard 14mm headed bolt. But once you get those off right there, normally there's a cover on here for the axle, but this one didn't have it, and they're normally held on with 10mm. But you take the cover off, then you take these 3 14mm bolts off, and you can slide the whole axle out. And as you can see from right there, the fluid is draining, so make sure you have a pan underneath there to catch it if you haven't drained it yet. But the axle nut was a 36mm on this one,